President Trump meeting with House Republicans at the Trump Kennedy Center to map out their midterm strategy, with 47 reminding GOP lawmakers that they got plenty of ammo when it comes to transport, border security, and crime.
Together, we had 12 months of unprecedented success in 2025, and now we're going to make history and break records with the epic midterm victory that we're going to pull off. Millions and millions of people were pouring into our country, and I fixed it. The problem is people forget that I did it. They totally forget. She's going to break the record for her mom who's sitting in the front with her father. I'm going to break it. I think every president and vice president should be forced to take cognitive exams. I don't think Gavin could. He's got a good line of crap, but other than that, he couldn't pass.
Speaking of the greasy one, Gavin Newsom giving an interview to MS Now. What's that? To whine about the president.
Unlike the president of the United States, who's not done a damn thing, hasn't lifted a finger. So you talk about the attributes for a president of the United States, take a look at what you've got and consider the opposite. And that's what the American people deserve.
Do you want to be president of the United States?
It's not the focus, not my interest. It's not. I literally have no idea what fate will hold. The only thing that matters is 2026, taking back the House of Representatives. Do I believe that Donald Trump will promote fair and free elections if Speaker Johnson remains Speaker in 2027? No, I do not.
So, Dana, it's one thing to talk about and champion the data of success. It's getting that info through, being persuasive with it. And with the way the media operates, they're corrupt, they're not credible. They're going to do everything they can to muck it up.
Well, okay, except that we are in a period where media is different, right? So Nick Shirley has basically helped bring down a governor in Minnesota, though Tim Walz says he's staying there until he doesn't, which I would be surprised if he finishes this term. The other thing is Newsom just said that the only thing that matters is 2026 and the House taking back the Congress. But I would say, why? They don't pass legislation. No one's passing legislation. Unless your goal is to just impeach President Trump again in the House, I don't understand why the goal. Why? Nobody's passing legislation. Congress doesn't do anything. It is notable that this week is the anniversary of the LA wildfires, a point not lost on Kennedy, who lost, well, he has to redo her home there. He did an interview where he just said that there was a historic speed of the wildfire cleanup, and he said it's the fastest debris removal in U.S. history, which sounded to me a lot like the largest airlift in history. And I think the fires were his Afghanistan moment.
What say you, Kennedy?
I'm going to be there tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow to mark the anniversary with my friends and neighbors who lost everything. I have one of those homes that's filled with toxins, and the insurance companies don't want to pay us anything. They don't really want to clean our homes. New York Times just did a very interesting piece about a family who was told it was safe to go back into their homes, and they've all tested positive for lead and neurotoxins. So that's what these families are having to deal with. And guess who is shielding the insurance companies? The governor. The insurance commission that is populated by the richest insurance companies in the country, they're making sure, with the help of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, they don't have to help anybody. It's been a year. Nothing has been done to my house. We haven't had any remediation. And I've got so many neighbors like that. And then you've got the people who have lost everything. And they're being offered pennies on the dollar for what it would take to reconstruct their homes. And you can't do it. And also, you can't go and get permits unless you have a settlement with your insurance company. They're going to delay as long as possible, even though it says in your policy, this is what you paid for. This is what you were owed. That is what the governor is doing in that state. He's running interference. It is criminal. It is immoral. And the president is right. All he has is a line of crap.
So you're saying Newsom should dye his hair. Hey, Harold, in the green room, I was really surprised to hear you say that President Trump has done so many great things for the country, it's almost hard to keep track, and that could work against him.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did. I have it right here in my
I
notes.
trust you. The November of 2025, just a few months ago, we had an election. Democrats did very well. I think they did very well because they spoke to people where they were, the kinds of challenges people are facing in their everyday lives with housing and groceries and healthcare. I hear you loud and clear. My prayers continue to go out, and I know you are going back to your home state or going back to California tomorrow. One of the things I would ask President Trump to do, we have sent the National Guard to places where we don't think these locals are managing immigration right. He should get after these insurance companies too. It does not make sense. It's incompatible with the American way that if you buy insurance that something bad happens and you can't rely on that insurance. This is a contract they had with you and millions of other Californians, and we should hold them to it. I happen to think the election, to Dana's point, is going to be this year about just the basics. It always is. Do people feel better about where they are in October, November than they do today? If that is the case, then Republicans will win. If they don't feel better, they likely will lose. To Dana's most salient point, though, Democrats, we need a message. If the only message we have is that we want to go after President Trump, even if the country rewards us with victory on that message, that's the wrong message. We've got to figure out how we empower people, how we make communities safer, how we make communities more investable. If I were mayor or governor, I'd be meeting with the president saying, all this money you've attracted or you got commitments from around the world, $19 trillion, how can we make my city and state ready for that kind of investment? What do we need to be doing to educate our workers and educate students who will graduate into the workforce? These are the things you don't hear in politics enough of, and I hope that someone gets to it quicker than not.
Jesse, what does the GOP have to do?
Well, we have a lot of money, so that helps. But I think Harold's on to something. He doesn't even realize it. I'll help you with it.
My colonizer.
Trump should federalize the Palisades. He should declare a disaster zone and say, Gavin, if you can't do it, I will. I'm a builder. You bring in the Army Corps of Engineers, you bring in the National Guard, you bring in some of your construction crews, and you just bulldoze all the BS out of there and just start building homes. I don't care. Let Gavin Newsom fight you as you're building homes back. You know, I'd have
I agree with you.
Pam at the DOJ go rattle some heads in the insurance industry. What are you guys doing over there? Knock some heads together. Do something, because this guy's not doing anything right now.
That Geico lizard has done nothing for me.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.